Jarvis, you there?
At your service, sir.
Talking about technology in Marvel movies inevitably brings us to this man, Tony Stark, especially when it comes to his Iron Man suit, which customers are fun with his film. We have probably wondered about the technology behind this suit, particularly the nanotechnology feature in his final suit. But hold on, today I'm not going to talk about the suit. There's something even more important, the technology in Tony Stark's chest. Why is it important? Because it's connected to a massive technological project currently being built in France, expected to be completed by 2025. This project is called ITER, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. It's a kind of fusion reactor, but on a gigantic scale, the largest in the world. Interestingly, the technology is somewhat similar to what's in Tony Stark's chest. We'll explore how it works shortly. If this project succeeds, it will be a groundbreaking achievement. Just one glass of water could power a fusion reactor that provides electricity for one person's entire lifetime.
1 pound of fusion fuel would produce 40 million kilowatt hours of electricity.
That could warm your heart for 50 lifetimes.
Alright, let's first go back to the cave where Tony Stark was held captive and created his first suit of armor. In the story, Tony Stark is kidnapped by a group of terrorists. Unfortunately, his heart is pierced by a shrapnel, putting his life in danger. Luckily, there's Jensen, a doctor who's also being held captive in the cave. Jensen implanted an electromagnet in Tony Stark's chest to prevent the shrapnel from reaching his heart. Tony Stark was kidnapped because the terrorists wanted him to build missiles for them. But instead of building missiles, Tony Stark built this.
That doesn't look like a Jericho missile.
That's because it's a miniaturized arc reactor.
The Arc Reactor. ARC stands for Affordable, Robust, Compact. It's essentially a miniature fusion reactor. What is a fusion reactor? I will explain that later. But in reality, the Arc Reactor is inspired by an actual compact fusion reactor developed by MIT, a famous university in the United States. Its size is comparable to the one seen in Tony Stark's lab. Interestingly, in the Iron Man story, Tony Stark is portrayed as an MIT graduate.
And at 17, he graduated summa cum laude from MIT.
So it makes sense that he'd invent the Arc Reactor. Even under immense pressure, he managed to make it small enough to fit in his chest. Now, let's discuss what a fusion reactor really is. Like Tony Stark's mini version, simply put, a fusion reactor is a machine that mimics the way the sun works. Wait, mimic the sun? You have probably heard about China creating an artificial sun. That's an example of a fusion reactor. To be clear, they are not making a literal sun. They are replicating how the sun produces energy. So, how does the sun work?
Hydrogen line atoms. The sun is made up mostly of these. Now, what if two of them collide? Then one of them will turn into a neutron and you get hydrogen 2. Next, it collides with another atom and becomes helium 3. And then it collides with another one and you get helium 4.
Still confused? Let's simplify it. The sun works through a process called nuclear fusion. Fusion is the process of combining two atomic nuclei. In the sun, hydrogen atoms collide and fuse into helium. The fusion releases an enormous amount of energy.
Here are 2 gallons of water. There's a little less than 1/100th of an ounce of heavy hydrogen in here, costing only a few cents to extract it from the water. Fusion reactions occurring in that quantity of fuel would produce the same heat energy as the combustion of 2 tons of coal, or the burning of 300 gallons of gasoline. 1 pound of fusion fuel would produce 40 million kilowatt hours of electricity. Enough electricity for 20,000 people for a year.
With this knowledge, other nations are racing to replicate the sun process here on Earth through fusion reactor, aiming to create a sustainable energy source for the future. But if they succeed, here's the bad news. Building a fusion reactor isn't easy. They are trying to replicate the sun, a celestial body with 28 times Earth gravity. For the sun, fusion is easy, but achieving it on Earth requires enormous funding and cutting-edge technology. For decades, fusion technology has been stuck in the experimental phase, and no one has achieved fully satisfactory results. Many are even pessimistic, as this technology evolved until life by 30 years.
So as I say, a lot of you will have heard of fusion, and probably a lot of you will have heard the long foretold circumstance that fusion is always 30 years away.
Arc reactor technology. That's a dead end, right?
Maybe.
Am I right? We haven't had a breakthrough in that, in what, 30 years?
That's what they say.
So far, the only person who has successfully created a working fusion reactor and harvested energy from it is Tony Stark. But that's fair, because he,
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
due to the challenges of building a fusion reactor, 7 countries are agreed to collaborate on creating the world's largest fusion reactor. This project is called ITER. It's being built on a 180-hectare site in France. China's artificial sun is actually part of the preparation for this massive project, as China is one of the member countries. The structure of the reactor began in 2020 during the pandemic, and is expected to be completed by 2025. But even then, it will only be in the plasma heating stage. This mega project is estimated to cost up to $65 billion. Let's take a quick look at how the reactor works. Nearly all fusion reactors share the same basic design, a donut-shaped chamber called a Tokamak, a term borrowed from Russian. You have probably seen it in Iron Man. Inside the Tokamak, hydrogen fuel is placed and heated to 150 million degrees Celsius, 10 times hotter than the sun.
Inside the Tokamak machine, 2 types of hydrogen gas, deuterium and tritium, are mixed together into a superhot state called a plasma. Now, when running, this plasma can reach the incredible temperature of 150 million degrees. Large magnets in the wall of the Tokamak contain the plasma and stop it from touching the sides where it can cool down. Now, when it gets hot enough, the 2 types of hydrogen atoms fuse together to form helium and spit out a neutron. Now, these neutrons fly out of the plasma and hit the walls of the Tokamak, but they carry energy, and the hope is that this energy can one day be used to heat up water, turn it into steam, to drive a turbine and generate electricity.
That's roughly how it works. So, do you think the fusion reactor being built in France will succeed? Write your thoughts in the comments below. Now, back to Iron Man. Could Tony Stark realistically build a fusion reactor that small? Based on the challenges we've discussed, it's unlikely. Fusion reactors need to be huge, but that doesn't mean the movie is completely unrealistic. There's one famous theory called cold fusion. Cold fusion is a type of fusion reaction that can supposedly occur at normal temperatures, so it doesn't require millions of degrees that we mentioned earlier. Theoretically, it could also be small, like Tony Stark's version. This theory is based on discovery in 1989 by 2 scientists, Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons. They reported unexpected energy output when they reacted palladium in water containing deuterium. They speculated it might be a fusion reaction. So what Tony Stark built in the cave could have been inspired by this research. After all, we also use palladium.
That's palladium, 0.15 grams. You need at least 1.6, so why don't you go break down the other 11?
Unfortunately, the cold fusion experiment reported by these 2 scientists was later dismissed as a mistake. It was deemed unscientific and inconsistent. That's why in Iron Man, the technology is referred to as the Arc Reactor, a compact fusion reactor developed by MIT. This also explains why in Iron Man 2, it was written that Tony Stark was being poisoned by palladium.
Check palladium levels.
Blood toxicity, 24%.
Later, Tony Stark created a new element based on clues from his father.
Congratulations. You have created a new element.
Does it still work the same way as the fusion reactor we have discussed? Let's pause here for now. The most important thing is that you now understand what a fusion reactor is.
40 million kilowatt hours of electricity.
3 gigajoules per second.
And 3, 2, 1.